Oh interrupted Reverend Sawtelle, and it is important to get out tomorrow and vote. It is important to get out tomorrow and vote. I don't work for President Obama. I don't work for the Democratic Party, but it is important tomorrow to get out and vote. It is. Now, don't forget that. And I don't care if you know who you need to vote for. I don't care. I don't work for television news anymore, so I can say that you need to put my girl in because we got a lot of hard work ahead of us. I want to speak to you very briefly because I know we have much that we still have to do on this program to honor some people who are true heroes in our community. I want to speak to you really briefly about what I call the call of the moment when we're speaking about moving up to the next step. Of the hundreds of heartbreaking and horrendous stories that have come out of the devastation in Haiti, there was one in particular that touched me, an old woman who had been taking her regular nap, wakes up to find herself underneath tons of concrete and rubble. She went to sleep, everything in her world was fine. She woke up in darkness, concrete and rubble on top of her. Can you imagine waking up? When you're old anyway, it's hard to for a minute you have to kind of get your bearings. And then you're waking up and it's all darkness around you and you feel closed in. You don't feel pain, but there's been a jolt and there's a closeness and there's this sense of not being able to breathe. And I was struck at how in an instant, everything can change.
Amen.
You go from light to darkness. You go from calm to chaos. You go from kind of having a sense of control in your world and waking up to no control in an instant. Everything can change. She went to sleep, there was life all around her. She woke up, there was death. I am always drawn to the notion of this moment, that in an instant, in a moment, life can change. In our own experiences, we think about those moments in our life, not necessarily always devastating, maybe wonderful, maybe spectacular, but those significant experiences that happened in a moment.
Wow.
The moment I saw his face, the moment of the first kiss, the moment that changed everything. Despite the fact there are no quantifiable measurements, we signify the importance of the moment. Religious institutions teach us about the mystery of the moments. Buddhism teaches us that time, like a river, is in all places in the moment. That right now is the most important thing you can think about. Christianity assures us that with God, one day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like one day in the moment. There is a mystery in our concept of time. Just in that confusion of coming out of surgery, and you've had anesthesia, and you know how you wake up and it feels like no time has passed? That's kind of that mystery that happens. What happened? They took out your heart and put in a new one, but for you nothing has changed. Or the tragedy of waking up in a earthquake and realizing that all time has passed. We try to catch time. We try to make up time. We try to hold time still, but you can't do that. There's a mystery about this concept of time and the moment. We're all familiar with the term carpe diem. That's from the Latin poem by Horace that says, seize the day. Now Horace's message is that we should not trust the future. We should eat, drink, and be merry, because tomorrow we will die.
Amen.
That's not quite the moment that I'd like to talk to you about. I would suggest that we need to know how to recognize these moments. Now, there's that one moment that's just an instant, like that. But there's the other moment that's bigger than time. The moment. Don't miss this moment.
Amen.
I was thinking about Martin Luther King's life and all the moments along the way that took him on the path he was in. You know, we think about Martin Luther King in terms of, I have a dream, and that's wonderful and that's amazing, but there were many moments in his life that got him to be the martyr that he became, the prophet that he was. And have no doubt about it, he was one of our last prophets in modern times. And there were many moments along the way of his life, and we don't know what moment changed him to that way. When he was a student at Morehouse College, he wanted to be a doctor. He wanted to be a lawyer. He didn't necessarily want to step into his father's footsteps as a preacher. In a wonderful book that I highly recommend, Parting the Waters, Taylor Branch, talks about these early days when King was kind of deciding which way to go, like we all decide when we're in college. And he didn't know if he could step into his father's shoes. It tells the story about how when he was in the summer, he used to work in the tobacco farms in Connecticut. That's how he made his money in the summer. And the summer of his junior year at Morehouse College, he went to the tobacco farm that summer. Hadn't decided what he wanted to do, felt the pressure that his father was putting on him, and went out one night drinking beer. They drank a lot of beer at that tobacco farm. Yes, he did. And this particular night, they all had too much beer and got in trouble. The police came. King didn't get arrested, but he got in big trouble. And he decided, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna get this word to my father. How am I gonna tell my father that I got in all this trouble? So he said, you know how I'll do it? I'll tell him that I've decided to enter the church. I'm going to be a preacher. And that this brought me to it. And so he did. He went, called his father, and said, Daddy, I got some good news and some bad news. And the good news is, I decided to answer the call to ministry. But the bad news is I got in a little trouble with some beer. Well, his father was so amazed by the good news that he immediately called for the initial sermon at Ebenezer Church, and he called for the ordination process, and King, before he knew it, was a preacher. One moment changed everything. Now you might say, well, that moment was the moment he called his father. I say that moment was the moment he drank that last beer. I'm in the process of writing a book about moments because it's fascinating to me how we end up where we are.
Amen.
I'm now working in southern Sudan, building a girls' school. Never would have thought that would have been my future. Thought television news would be all that I wanted to do. But one moment was reading an article in the Boston Globe about slavery in southern Sudan. And the article captivated me. It hit me that slavery could still exist in the modern days. I didn't even know where Sudan was. But this moment, it was like a light went off in me. I ended up going with a group of Bostonians to visit Sudan in the summer of 2001. And what we saw there angered us and frustrated us and spurred us into action. And so my good friend and my co-pastor at my church, Gloria White Hammond, and I founded an organization called My Sister's Keeper. We ended up building a girls' school, the first of its kind in the village of Akan, Sudan. We have created an adult literacy program for parents of those girls, and we're supporting a women's peace initiative in Sudan. All of that for me hinged on a moment. A moment when things changed. Now, if you push me a little bit, because I've been kind of pushing it, I would say, was it the moment of reading the article? Was it the moment that I decided to leave the 11 o'clock news? Well, there was another moment in my life where I think things began to change. I was about 6 years old when Martin Luther King came to the Arch Street Baptist Church in Little Rock, Arkansas. And he was preaching about the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement. This was in the mid-50s. I don't want to even tell you how old I am, but I think I'm about 255. But Martin Luther King had just won a huge victory in Montgomery, Alabama. But he was having trouble, and this is what I've read from Taylor Branch's book, The Pillars of Fire. He was having trouble deciding where to go from that moment. The Montgomery boycott was very successful. But he didn't know if he should stay in the pulpit in his comfort zone as a preacher speaking about civil rights, or if he should get out into the streets, because God had put this moment in motion. And he wasn't the only one in the civil rights movement. Young students were demonstrating all across the South at lunch counters and walking and protesting and demanding change. And they were saying to Dr. King, "You're a good preacher, but we need you in the streets." The Baptist church was saying, "Dr. King, you need to stay in the pulpit because this is what you do so well. Don't go out in the streets because that could be really dangerous." So Taylor Branch says his choices were between staying in his comfort zone in the pulpit or going over a cliff. He took the risk and he did what he had to do. I asked a friend of mine, Charlie Stitt, who was the ambassador in Tanzania, a good man and a student of Martin Luther King, did King know at that moment what he was setting in motion? Did he know that he was changing the world at that moment? Charlie says that King was being faithful to that moment, and that it didn't matter whether he knew what the future was going to hold. He had to be faithful to the moment. I would suggest to you this morning that we are in a significant moment in time. I call it a kairos moment. Now, kairos is out of Greek mythology that speaks to, well, it started actually in rhetoric, that speaks to when the speaker and the audience connect. When I say something and you get it and it's bigger than the two of us, it's an aha moment, it's kairos. But of course, my religion took it and said it's when the universe is lined up and the stars are lined up and the whole world is ripe and right for change. There's a shifting in the whole paradigm of the world. I would suggest to you that is what's going on right now. This time last year, I was at the inauguration of the world's first African-American president. Something has shifted. When you go to look at our economic meltdown that we are all trying to figure out, it is a global meltdown. It's not just here. It's all over the world. Something has shifted. I travel enough back and forth to Africa to tell you it's not just about economics. It's not just about politics. We are running out of water. Something has shifted. The situation in Haiti is unbelievable. We can't even fathom the destruction that's going on there. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have global warming. The polar bears don't have a place to rest on. The ice is melting. We have not figured out how to get along, and it looks to me like in many situations we are on the precipice of total breakdown. We're in a kairos moment. A moment of great peril, but it's also a moment of great opportunity.
Amen.
It could go either way. But here's my theory. Now, I'm not a prophet. I'm not a psychic. But I believe that this is the moment when the universe is calling everybody up in here. It's calling you. That God is saying there is something you need to do right now. It's not just about going to Sudan. It's not just about helping start a movement or keep the movement going. It's not just about voting. But there's something that the universe is calling us to do because we need to reach out to each other in the world's pain. The world is in pain right now. And you know, it's like when things get bad is when you want to just pull over the covers and go back to sleep. When you don't have enough money to pay for your own situation, it seems like you wouldn't want to even reach out. But I would argue that this is just the time you need to reach out. Just the time. Just the time. What the NAACP is doing in this community, what organizations are doing all over the world, what CARE is doing, what your churches, your synagogues are doing. You are the choir. I know that. That's why you're here. And I know I'm singing to the choir. But what I want to let you know is, don't stop now. Don't get weary now in doing good, because now is just the time we got to step up to the plate. Now is just the time we have to give more. The times demand it. The times demand it. It's like going to sleep and everything is fine, and waking up and it's all change. But you still gotta wake up. You gotta wake up, you gotta get up, and you gotta keep moving. And that's what we're called to do now. So my message to you this morning is, we gotta keep on doing what we're doing. It's important. It's important to vote. It's important to reach out to your neighbor. It's important to reach out to your family member. It's important to hold yourself up. It's important to keep a positive attitude. It's important to keep hope alive.
Amen.
Now, more than ever, this moment demands it. God bless you and thank you very much.